I'm joined by University of Central Oklahoma running backs coach Tyler Sklenar. Coach, thank you for taking time to come on and talk to me this afternoon. Could you start by telling the listeners a little about yourself?
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you having me on. My name is Tyler Sklenar. I was born in a really small community, tiny town in western Kansas. Grew up there, played every sport I could: football, basketball, baseball. Actually, was a big basketball guy. Being from Kansas, I think it's the hoop dreams. So ended up playing football and doing a really good job in high school. Got a chance to go play at Kansas Wesleyan University. Under head coach Matt Drinkle, learned a ton from him as a quarterback there. And then from there was able to go into West Texas A&M as a student assistant. Got into coaching and everything with Coach Hunter Hughes, Jake Brown, the offensive coordinator. Got to learn a ton, and then got the chance to move up and get promoted as a graduate assistant there under offensive coordinator Russ Martin. Was able to coach the quarterbacks for a little bit, and then got my own position group, coached the tight ends, was there for a while, and then went to the high school route actually for a year here in Oklahoma over at Edmond North High School, and then got the itch to get back into college football, and ended up at UCO, and this past year was an assistant quarterbacks coach. Kind of got on as an analyst, and when Coach Gilbert got the opportunity to go to Purdue, I got the opportunity to move into his spot and get my own position group again. So coaching the running backs here at Central Oklahoma this next year.
And then you mentioned you grew up in Kansas. Now, what kind of is the scene there?
Say it one more time. You kind of cut out.
Oh, you mentioned that you grew up in Kansas. What is the high school football scene like up there?
It's really centered around Wichita and Kansas City, but I think there's a lot of good players out in Western Kansas. There's a lot of small town kids that end up going to KU, K-State. I had some opportunities to be a walk-on at the Division II programs in Kansas, but the chance to go to Kansas Wesleyan and play for who I thought was a really good head coach, really good offensive mind, and Matt Drinkle, and I was able to be on scholarship and be in the mix. That's kind of what tied me to it. But definitely a lot of good players without the state. I would say it's very similar to Oklahoma. You've got your two bigger schools or two bigger cities with bigger schools that kind of dominate when it comes to big Division I football players, but there's still a lot of them out in the smaller towns out west, and very, very similar to here, but it's definitely the basketball scene in Kansas is pretty dominant.
And so you mentioned that you turned down walking opportunities to play at Kansas Western because of what kind of was that experience like playing and learning from him?
It was awesome. He was definitely one of the most up and coming football minds, at the time. And even now, he's he just got promoted to the offensive line coach at Army West Point. That's where he went after Kansas Wesleyan. And so, going as a quarterback, you really want to play for a big time offense and, have the chance to make a bunch of plays and be put in a really good position to win. And, Kansas Wesleyan was that team. They had just made the playoffs the year prior, and had a lot of good guys coming back. Really nice facilities. It was really good small college feel. There's still a lot of people I talk to from my time there, and I appreciate all those guys a ton. Coach Drinkle is someone I consider a mentor, and everybody on that staff, because they kind of molded me now into my coaching career and how I think about offensive football and the quarterback position, and some ways to put them in the best position to win and to be able to score a lot of points and gain a bunch of yards. So it was just the opportunity to be a part of a really good program. And looking at their track record since then, it's obvious that they're definitely one of the top in the NAIA ranks, and they still continue to do that today with those guys. So it's just good opportunity, good people, and it was really good for me as a player and as a person to gain a lot of experience there.
And so at some point you go to West Texas A&M as what kind of led you down that path of transitioning from a player to a coach?
Yeah, so I had a really good influence from my high school coaches. I feel like I've always had to be an overachiever in my playing career. I was a good athlete, good player, but I feel like I over exceeded expectations more so than not. That kind of put me in a position to play, and so I really credit it to those guys. Playing for high school, that gave me a chance, and like I honestly I wasn't going to play football in high school. I was a basketball kid, like I said, and it took two of my high school coaches, seeing me in weights and PE class, saying, "Hey, like, just come and try football. Just try it again, and we'll give you 3 days. If you don't like it, you're good." And after those 3 days, I was hooked, and I never looked back. And so I always knew I wanted to coach from that point forward. Um, we had after that my freshman season at Kansas Wesleyan, we had a good year. Just barely missed the playoffs, so obviously not to the standard there. And there were some guys coming in my position that I knew were going to be pretty good, and ended up breaking about every school record, and that's still standing to this day. And so, kind of thought about making that transition to coaching. West Texas A&M is a great university, great place. Had a little bit connection through people at WT, and so got down there and got the chance to get in front of those coaches and just let them know, hey, I'll help out in any way I can. And it was a good experience. I actually got to coach on the defensive side of the ball for the first spring I was there, and then got to go back to quarterback. So definitely a good transition for me. Something I always wanted to do eventually, but got to learn a ton, especially early on over there. So I just felt like the time was right, and had that opportunity in front of me, so just kind of took advantage of it.
Now, because I feel like a lot of people will hear the term student assistant, not really know what all in kind of encompasses that role. So, what was your experience like as a student assistant?
It was awesome, and I actually was able to do more football wise than a lot of guys get to do. I came in, and the biggest thing is, as a student assistant, you're really behind the scenes trying to help the operation go as much as you can. And for me, that kind of was, I'm gonna find a way to make an impact so that if I'm not here, they're gonna feel that, and they're gonna know that, hey, this guy's making an impact. He's doing something. And so, especially starting out, I was with defense. So I was able to give kind of a perspective during spring ball to some of those players, like, hey, this is what the offense is trying to do on these schemes. Here's how they're trying to put you in a tough spot, and here's how you can kind of combat it. Helping the DBs, position coach, our DC at the time. And so, it was just all about finding an impact beyond that. And I think our staff, our head coach and coordinators, kind of appreciated that from me. And as we went on into that next fall, coaching the quarterbacks, I was 19 at the time, 18, 19 years old, and so, like, being able to have that kind of responsibility to where I could take the quarterbacks and go through individual drills and everything like that, while our OC was overseeing some different things. I took a lot of pride in that. And eventually, when between offensive coordinators, when Jake Brown got an opportunity to go down to Baylor on Dave Aranda's first staff there, as a student assistant at 19 years old, I was tasked with coaching the quarterbacks in my own position room until our next offensive coordinator got in at the end of the summer. And so, I found a way to make an impact. Really took advantage of opportunities, and that kind of led me to get more and more responsibility when it came to actual football stuff. And I tried to take it and run. And that time of me coaching the quarterbacks, at 19 years old, I took a lot away from that. That's probably where I learned my most amount of, how to coach, how to see the game, how to teach the game. Because, being thrown in the fire like that, that's some of the best ways to learn sometimes. So it was a really good experience. And in a student assistant role, the more you can take on, the more you can show you can handle. Obviously, the more they'll give to you. So that's kind of what a student assistant is, and how to kind of go about it, I guess.
Now you mentioned at 19, at least for a brief period, you kind of had your own rule. Now, I imagine that had to been kind of daunting. So how kind of were you able to navigate maybe nerves that you had, and what all did you learn from that time there?
No, it was definitely a great experience. Something I really, enjoyed doing at the time, and I really take a lot of pride in, to this point in my career. It's crazy because, you're 19 years old, you're sitting there with, it had been his going into his third or fourth year at quarterback. It was just his first year at West Texas. He had transferred in from Texas Tech. He set all kinds of Texas high school records, and that's a state where high school football is pretty impressive, just across the board and the amount of talent there is there. But it was kind of interesting because he's sitting there a little bit older than me, about my age. But we had a good group. I never felt like I was in over my head. I feel like Coach Brown had prepared me enough in those meetings. He really thought a lot of me and asked me a lot of tough questions early on. That kind of prepared me for being able to be a position coach, and I remember when Coach Hughes brought me in his office when Jake Brown was leaving, and he said, he's moving on, and I want you to coach quarterbacks. And I said, oh, okay, well, do you want me to keep it the status quo, kind of change some things? I said, what do you want from me? And he said, go about it, make your own spin on it. I trust you, and I think you've done a good job up to this point. And so that's something I'll always remember. I'm a real calm, cool, collected guy. I really don't get too high, get too low. I'm definitely very competitive and have an edge, in those situations. But I always tried to keep even. I never tried to worry too much. Just kind of trusted my preparation and what guys had taught me. So I was able to have a really good experience. I had a really good group, and we went into the spring, made some changes, and I feel like made a lot of plays. And so it was cool because our next coordinator, Russ Martin, started. He was there on the weekends. Sometimes we'd meet, and he'd talk about kind of some of the things he was wanting to do with the offense and with that position. And so kind of got to implement some of his stuff. And again, that challenged me again because that's, I'd only been in Jake Brown's system up until that point. And so Russ was coming in with a lot of new structure and a lot of new verbiage and things like that. And so it was a really good challenge for me, and it definitely, those guys, I consider mentors to this day. I can call them and ask them anything about ball, about life, and kind of get a lot from it. So definitely, proud of that time. I felt like I did as good a job as any, and really appreciative for them giving me the opportunity because, a lot of people, if you got a student assistant sitting in your office that's 19 years old and has only been around your program for about a year, not a lot of people are gonna take that chance and let you do it. So, definitely appreciative of that.
And so now after your time as a student assistant, you graduate, you become a grad assistant. So what kind of is the difference maybe in terms of responsibility, a student assistant to a grad assistant?
So in most places, student assistants really don't help much with the football side of things. They're really more towards the operations and helping out with, film duties, with, recruiting, stuff like that. That's where a lot of places are different. Where graduate assistants, you're able to recruit, you're able to be more involved in a position, more involved in talking scheme, things like that. That's kind of where I feel like my student assistant time was a little different because I was treated as a graduate assistant. From the time I stepped in the building, so I was used to those responsibilities. So when I stepped into the graduate assistant role, I really wasn't much of a difference on the day to day and whatnot. So, the biggest difference for me was just I was, coaching the quarterbacks when Russ got there at the end of the kind of the middle of the summer. I was kind of expecting to go to running backs just because how our setup was there. O-line, tight ends, GA was kind of an assistant to that position, and the running backs coach was his own position. He coached his own position and everything. So I was kind of anticipating going into that role. And, another crazy story about it is going into that spring, I had to take about 33 college credit hours in that spring and summer so I could graduate, so I could put myself in position to get that job. Because I knew our two guys their time had been up. They'd been here 2 or 3 years, and so I kind of rushed a bunch of classes and was able to graduate and get that job. But you know, when Russ came in, he said, "Hey, I want you to coach tight ends," and I kind of shocked me a little bit. And you know, he said, "You know, it'll be really good for your career. You know, you've been a quarterbacks guy. You understand the pass game. You understand the scheme and everything. This will help you a lot. You know, seeing the run game side of things, because we used our tight ends in the run game a little bit, and then used them a lot in the pass game. And he said, I seeing you work, you know, as a position coach with the quarterbacks, he said, I trust you to get this done." And so that again, that was, you know, I was real proud of that, because you know that position was an assistant coach at the time. It wasn't their own position group. So you know, him moving me to tight ends and letting me coach those guys, and you know, pulling away from the O line where I could have my own room was awesome. So you know, Russ Martin is definitely, you know, a guy that I appreciate a ton. I consider him my biggest mentor in this profession. You know, definitely the brightest, you know, offensive mind I've been around. It's impressive, you know, how sophisticated his pass game and RPO game is, and how he's able to teach guys to make it simple. You know, so that transition was the biggest, just going to tight ends. You know, I had been a quarterbacks guy my entire career, my entire life, essentially. So it was definitely a new way to see the game. But I had good guys around me. The O-line coach, Cooper Bassett, was awesome. He just got the O-line job at Utah State. So, you know, he's done a really good job throughout his career, and a guy that, you know, they made it easy on me, because they were guys I could lean on and you know, talk through things with, and they were always great, and they always helped me learn, and you know, mentored me. So you know, those guys, I'll be forever indebted to those guys for sure.
Now you mentioned you had to take 32, 33 credit hours. Like, how did you, from a time management, like how did you how did you pull? It's difficult enough. I can't imagine 32 or 33.
It was crazy, man. So I was a sport and exercise science degree. Coming into that spring, I was like, how can I graduate? I was set to graduate at the end of December, so after the football season. And I'm coming in, and I'm like, I got to get one of these jobs that's coming open. Like, this is my chance. I got to find a way to take advantage of it. And so, you know, looked into different ways. I was able to change my degree plan so I could take some more online classes. And so, in that spring, I took 18 credit hours of just normal online classes, and then I had two classes I could take they were called Education on Demand, where that you had like 9 months to do them, and they were pretty straightforward, self-paced. So that helped a ton. And so I'm sitting there. I had 18 plus 6. I had 24 hours done right there, and so I needed 9 more hours to graduate. And so I finished the 18 in the spring. I continued those two classes up until the buzzer in August so I could graduate. And then in the summer, I took 9 hours, which is the most they would let me take. And so was able to set myself up. And then I also got married that summer. So it was a wild ride, man. It was definitely a whirlwind, but you know, was able to make it happen somehow. You know, I had a few classes where my grades dipped a little bit, but it was still good enough to keep me rolling.
When I talked to Coach Donald about this time last year, he mentioned how it was kind of a tough adjustment for him, going for wide receivers to tight ends, just because, like you mentioned earlier, about the blocking and the various roles. I imagine going from quarterback to tight end. What was that adjustment like?
It was a big adjustment, to be honest. You know, obviously quarterbacks, you're really involved in the pass game and how those schemes align and what you're trying to do with them. But for the run game, it just depends. You know, I understood kind of what our big picture idea was in the run game of what we were trying to accomplish, but I really didn't understand the technicalities and the little minute details that went into it. So it was just, it gave me a whole new perspective for sure. And you know, on pass game stuff, if you're taking shots, you got to find out how to protect it, what your weaknesses are in certain protections, and what your strengths are. You know, our tight ends were really good athletes that were going to catch the ball. We asked them to do a lot in terms of their route tree and things like that. We moved them around a ton. We were pretty simple in the run game. I say that we were simple in the run game, but we were very efficient. I think we averaged over 220 yards a game, running the ball. And so it was just a really, really opened my eyes to see, up front what it takes, what kind of techniques we need to be using and what calls and combos and stuff like that, because that's an area where I never really had to deal with. And so, it helped me a ton. It helped me, learn how do I teach guys to run routes? What are some little technicalities? What are little details I need to be doing when I'm running routes? I need to keep my pad level down. I need to burst off the ball. I need to try to not pull up when I'm about to break, giving that defender an ID of where I'm going. And so, those things. And then in the run game, I've got to get my hat across the guy. I got to, base block a guy. I got to learn all the footwork for that. I got to look learn where my leverage needs to be. I need to teach those guys this. And so, it was really a big adjustment. And it was kind of, I had a really good position group. By the end of that year, that next spring and everything, I feel like we were the best position group on the field. We've got guys right now, we had an all-conference, all-American type guy that we moved around to running back. He had been an option quarterback in high school. So we moved him around. He played tight end. He was able to do on the ball stuff. He was able to run routes and was very efficient, run after catch. He Coach Donald knows him. Those guys had been, at least Coach Donald, maybe Coach Sanders was at WT when they recruited him. So he's a really good player. He did a lot of good things there. And then we had a guy that was a basketball player, transferred in to play football. And, he was, you think of basketball guys, you think of guys who are really good in the pass game. They don't really love to block. That wasn't this guy. This guy was very impressive on the ball. Once he got his hands on guys, it was done. He used great leverage, really good with his feet, and was good in the pass game too. So, having a guy like that made my job easier. Then we had a quarterback that I was in the room with prior, coaching the quarterbacks, and then he had just moved to tight end about the same time I was going to tight end. So, that was a cool experience, being able to coach that kid for a long time. Great kid. He did a really good job for us. And then we had a junior college kid transfer in he's a difference maker. He's still playing for them now, and he's doing a lot of good things. And he was good on the ball, good off the ball. And so, it wasn't like I had to go into position group and really try to rebuild the room. Like, the talent was there. I just had to make sure I was doing a good job teaching those guys and refining the great talent that we had, and managing how we could get those guys in the game and how they could be effective. And so, that was the biggest thing. Quarterback position, you got one guy on the field. You find the best one, you put him out there, and you make plays. And for us, we were a lot of one tight end, 11 personnel. We get into some 12 here and there, but it's all about rotations and keeping guys fresh and keeping them efficient on the field. And so that was another big adjustment for me, because I never had to do that before. With quarterback, you roll with the guy and you live with it. But so got to get a lot of good perspective and got to coach a lot of really good players at that spot. And I felt like that's the most growth I've shown year to year, was coaching those guys.
And so when you look back on your time at West Texas A&M, what kind of sticks out to you the most?
It's really special to be able to coach at the place you graduated from, and that's something I may have took advantage of at the time. But looking back now, those years shaped me, as a person and as a coach, because 19 through about 21 years old, I was there, and learned from a lot of great people. You look at some of our guys from our staff. At the time, we had in 2019 had the best year there that they've had since they were winning. Going to the playoffs and making the semifinals and stuff like that when Coach Sanders and Coach Donald were there, so just seeing some of those guys on our staff, where they're at now. Our offensive coordinator, Jake Brown, he's the offensive coordinator at Louisiana Tech right now. Our receivers coach, he is an offensive analyst at Michigan State. Our O-line coach is the O-line coach at Utah State. I can go on and on, of how good of a group we had there, and learned a bunch of good things from those guys. And the biggest thing I took away from there, to be honest, is the relationships with those guys. That when I was a student assistant and being with those GAs, we had a group of 4 guys that, some places student assistants and GAs may be on separate levels and aren't treated the same in terms of like what they can bring and things like that. But I had an awesome group of 4 guys, and you'll see I've got that picture of us after we won our rivalry game with the wagon wheel is still up on a lot of my social media pages, on my Facebook, on my Twitter, and stuff like that. And the relationship that I had with those guys is something that I'll take away from there the most. Some of my best friends, being my wedding, things like that, and just still connecting with those guys today, talking ball. When I got the running backs position, I sent those guys a text and let them know how much I appreciated them. Reached out to Coach Martin, who I talk to all the time. He just recently retired, and so the coaching world lost a great mentor, a great coach when he left the building. But so many lives impacted by him, and things like that. So the relationships I definitely take the most away, for sure. But then also, that's where I cut my teeth. That's where I learned football. That's where I learned how to coach, how to teach. Around a bunch of great dudes, and so just really appreciative of my time. And like I said, it's really special to be able to be at your alma mater and to coach at a place like that. With great people all across the board, facilities, and the people in admin, the teachers, and everything. How they worked with us is second to none. I really appreciate being able to do that for a place that is really special to me.
And so from there, you make your way to Edmond North, I believe. So how do we end up going from the college ranks in Oklahoma?
Yeah, so kind of towards the end of that last spring at WT was kind of looking to just do something else, kind of see if I could make more connections and go through different situations. And that WT was all I knew at the time, and so Coach Roof called me. He's head coach at Edmond North. He just got the job at Oklahoma Christian School down the road in Edmond. So called me up one day. We kind of talked a little bit, and ended up coming down later and talked ball and talked to those guys. And I thought it was a good opportunity. Was able to be really involved in installing the pass game and game planning and things like that. And so ended up coaching the receivers at Edmond North, which was again another position change. So I thought they had a lot of potential. An area for me to grow. I could really be involved in the scheming side, game planning of like getting these plays in the game type of deal. And so that was really what kind of struck to me on that. And I've got family out here. My mom lived in Edmond for the last couple of years, and so I was familiar with the area. Obviously, a great place to live. And I thought it would be a good opportunity, and I really enjoyed my time there. This past weekend I was up at just talking with some guys up at Kansas at KU, and ran into a guy that I coached with there. It was completely unexpected, but it was good to see him, and we got to sit in and talk a lot of ball. And so I learned a lot coming to Edmond North. It was a good experience getting over there.
Yeah, no, was from like a coaching standpoint, was there any major differences aside from obviously in high school you're not really recruiting, but like was there any major differences between coaching college ball and coaching high school ball?
At the end of the day, football is football. Everybody really does the same things. It's just how you structure it and your verbiage. But coaching the players, what's different about high school and college, it's pretty different, on their day to day. Because at Edmond North, I was a teacher, and so we'd go in the mornings, 7 a.m. We'd talk with the guys, meet with them a little bit, and then I'd go teach a class until 3 o'clock, and then we'd go into practice. And so just your constant exposure to football at the high school realm, at least where I was, is not the same. Some guys don't, if they're a coordinator or whatever, they may not have to teach. They can be in the coaches' offices all day, things like that. And so, at least just from my experience, I was not exposed to as much football throughout the day because I had to teach class. And, I was teaching health, Oklahoma history, and I had to make sure I had lesson plans. I had to make sure I had presentations ready and assignments for people to do, and, grading, things like that. And so I couldn't really be all in on football as much as I was used to. And so, in difference here in the college level, we get up here in the morning, we staff meet, and then we meet side of ball. We're watching film all the time. If we're not doing that, we're evaluating recruits. You know, and so that was the biggest difference to me from high school to college. But at the end of the day, like on the field, it's all pretty much the same, and how you operate and everything. It's just your preparation has to be a lot different just because of the time that you're having to devote to, you know, teaching a class and things like that.
So then from Edmond North, you end up where you are now at UCO. So how do you become a part of Coach Dorrell's staff?
No, so you know, I'd kind of started getting that feel to get back in college football. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. And you know, when Coach Bobak got fired, I was interested to see who they would bring in. You know, I didn't know Coach Dorrell directly. I'd worked with some guys that had been around him and worked with him and at Northwest Missouri and at ACU, and so I kind of had a feel of what he was about and how he operated. And you know, once he got the job, was very interested. You know, I like I said, I didn't have a direct connection. I had, especially, you know, Coach Donald and Coach Sanders, they both graduated from West Texas A&M. We were kind of there at different times, but I had connections to them, not kind of through people, and so just kind of started talking with those guys and was just trying to see how I could get in the fold with them, and got the chance to come on as an analyst at UCO. You know, and I was kind of helping out last spring. I was finishing all my teaching at Edmond North and was kind of rolling in the spring. Got to coach quarterbacks again, was awesome for me. It was big for me and coming back to the college ranks. And so, you know, getting in with Coach Leck was huge. Got to learn a lot from him. And obviously we had a good group in the quarterback room. And so, you know, just those were the things that drew me to it. You know, there's not very many head coaches that have won 3 national championships. You know, you can't name very many of them. And so to be able to work with a staff like this that we have and a head coach like Coach Dorrell, it was a no brainer for me. And I was gonna, you know, whatever it took, I was cool with whatever it took to get on staff with them and to work with those guys.
And you mentioned Coach Lechtenberg. I know he's now the head coach in Connecticut State. But what was it like working with him and learning from him?
Yeah, Coach Leck is one of the most, you know, impressive football minds out there. You know, he's very intelligent. You know, I got to learn a lot of ways to, you know, diagnose defenses from him. Just kind of his background and everything. It's definitely impressive what he brings to the table. So got to learn a lot of how to kind of decipher defenses, diagnose what they're doing. You know, what they're trying to do, why they're trying to do it. You know, that was huge for me. And, you know, Coach Leck, we were in that quarterback room together from the spring into this fall. And, you know, that was a big leap for me in my career to be able to, you know, learn that much under him. And so, you know, just appreciative of what he's done. I consider him a mentor, and, you know, he's a Division I head coach now, you know, and he deserves that. He's done a really good job in his career. And so, you know, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they can do up there at Central Connecticut.
Uh, you know, anybody that's followed the program saw the growth of Stephon Brown the year prior. Really struggled from a passing standpoint. I think he might have completed about half of his passes, 1 touchdown to 3 interceptions. But he comes this season and really, I think really that I saw on the film of him coming out of junior college. I know he had that big game against Fort Hayes. Kind of, how were you all able to, I would say, like, unlock in Steph, but kind of help him continue to grow as a quarterback?
You know, I saw the biggest growth in Steph. It would have been from the spring into the summer. You know, he had a great offseason. You know, from the time I was here, he was good in the spring, but the jump he made in the summer, of not just as a player but as a leader, I think that was the biggest thing for him. And those guys respect him a ton. You know, he's on our leadership council, and you know, he's obviously a playmaker. And so we had to find ways to play to his strengths, because you know, he brings a lot to the table. And you know, with his athleticism and his arm talent, you know, he got more and more comfortable as we went on, and he just kept making plays. You know, every game, I'd go up to him before, hey, play with an edge, and we're gonna have a chance. And so, with him, I always feel like you're gonna have a fighting chance, and he cares. He cares about the team, cares about success, and he wants to be great. But it really, I saw the biggest jump with him was going into the summer, and how he handled himself and how he led guys and how he brought guys along with him. That was what was really impressive to me.
And so now you're the running backs coach. You're replacing Coach Gilbert. So how did that kind of get that opportunity come to you to now be the running backs coach?
Yeah, so like I said, I've been on staff here a year now. I think Coach Doyle, I really appreciate him for a ton for giving me a chance. I feel like I'm proving myself again in the college football world. I've always had the underdog mentality. I've always been that way. But now I'm to the point. I've got something to prove. I feel like I'm proving a point again in this profession, and so just definitely grateful for the opportunity. Coach Gilbert was doing a great job with these guys. To see the growth we're at now compared to where it was when I came in last spring, and it's impressive what he was able to do. He got the chance to go to Purdue, which is an unbelievable opportunity for him. It's kind of back home for him. He taught me a lot coming in. We stay in contact. I asked him about certain footwork, certain drills, kind of what he's thinking and stuff like that. And so he's been a real asset to me. Really appreciate him. I miss having him around the office. He was a good dude, really, really, funny personality. So, but no, so when he left, it kind of opened the door for me to get my own position group again. And so, Coach Doral challenged me to take on that responsibility. I've gotten more of an expanded recruiting area now, recruiting the state of Kansas. And so, I've got that underdog mentality again. I'm ready to go out there and I'm ready to prove a point. I'm ready to. I'm just ready to make an impact and prove to those guys that I won't disappoint them. I'm a real loyal guy, almost to a fault at times. And so I don't. With Coach Droll giving me a chance like this, I don't want to let him down. That's the biggest thing for me. And so, it was a kind of a good position to be in, a good group to kind of get a part of, and I'm just grateful to be in this position and be able to lead those guys moving forward.
And I know spring ball is starting at the end of the month. Because if we're looking at the returning unit, I mean, you're returning the bulk of the main guys. I know Nasir and Junior are gone. You still acknowledge you still have Peyton, you still have Jay, you still have Jalen Cottrell. What kind of are you wanting to see out of those guys continue to build on the season that they all had last year?
No, and you're talking about three guys that have helped us a ton, as a program, like from a leadership standpoint and on the field, So the biggest thing I talk to those guys is like I want us to play with the feeling that we've got something to prove. I told them I'm coming in feeling that way, and I want them to kind of take that on as well. We were I feel like at the running back position we were a good group last year. Definitely a lot of things we can improve on, and so I've just stressed that to them is we've got to come out with a sense of urgency and try to prove a point that we're going to be a really good position group in this league, because as you know, it's a gauntlet. Every week you're going to be playing really good teams, really good defenses. And so, we've got to be able to run with an edge, play with an edge, and, be assignment sound and just care about our teammates and do it the way we need to do it to win. And so that's those guys, they all bring something different to the table. Obviously, Cottrell with his speed is a difference maker. He's a big play waiting to happen. We saw that last year, and P. Scott, his ability to, get in and out of cuts and to be able to make guys miss is really impressive. He's going to help us on the C back position as well. And so, and then Jace, he's coming off his ACL injury, so he really won't be involved as much in the spring. But seen a lot of great things out of him. He's been a real good leader for guys in our offseason workouts and everything. So, I'm excited for that group coming back. Andrew Carney's going to be in the mix a little bit with C back and running back. So, just excited about those guys. We got a lot of good guys coming in, and I'm really excited about as well.
Yeah, you mentioned you have some guys coming. Yeah, I'm impressed. It look as I mean, Jaden Washington is definitely a home run. That was to me when I turned on his, and then Trayvon at 220. Is that power back? And like you mentioned, Jace is coming off that ACL. So that I think also helps too, having that other bigger back. What about those two, Jaden Washington and Trayvon Woodford, do you like their games?
No, so definitely, Jaden's film. He was coming off an injury in his film this past year, and so for him to be going through that looked really impressive. Obviously his be able to change a pace and to hit the home run play is huge, and that's something we love to have at this position. He's done a really good job in our off-season work. He's bringing guys along with him, so I've definitely been excited to see him. Trayvon's obviously a big back. He's going to help us a ton. He brings a completely different factor with his size, so excited to get him rolling. And then we also got his younger brother Tyjay is in the mix as well, and young guy, hungry, really works hard, and so hopefully he'll continue to get better, and we'll see what he can bring to the table moving forward. But no, those guys that we brought in there have really done a good job this offseason. We've been very pleased with them. I think they'll add a really good dynamic to the group that we have in place already, and so pair that with the high school guys, and we may not be done at the position either. We'll see, but we're excited about that group.
And you mentioned high school guys. I'm impressed with that group as well, because starting with Brandon Tolbert, he's 195, but he runs, I think I said, he's 210, 215. I think he has great balance. I think he's not one-dimensional to me. He offers something in the pass game. What about, and then kind of sticks out to you about his game?
No, we're extremely excited about Brandon Tolbert. I was able to be around him a lot in the recruiting process. Really love the kid, his energy that he brings, and his attitude. It's really going to help our group a ton. Like you said, he's 195, but he plays a lot bigger. He's got that low center of gravity. He's able to bounce off arm tackles and get those yards after contact. I'm really excited about him. I think he's got a lot of juice. More than people give him credit for, and so I'm really excited about him. I think he'll be able to really help us as we move forward.
And then Will Mason out of Coweta, a bigger back. When I watch him, he's very physical. He seems to really want to contact. I think that's very good, because I know at times last year, some was third and fourth and short. It was kind of a struggle. When I feel like now with Trayvon and with somebody now like Brandon and Will in there, that shouldn't be as much of a problem. But when looking at Will, what kind of sticks out to you the most about him?
No, and Will is a great kid. Every interaction I've had, I've really enjoyed his personality and his energy. He's excited about getting here. I talked to him the other day, and he's chomping at the bit. But he's a really good player. Like you said, he's a bigger back. I think he weighs in about 210 right now. And what's crazy is he's running sub 1100s, in track. And so at that size, with that speed, it's very impressive. It's going to be really, really good to have a guy like that on our roster. His yards after contact's really big with him. He's a downhill runner, physical runner. But I think his speed is something that is going to stand out. With his size, it's going to be a big benefit to us at UCO. So we're excited to get him, man.
And then finally, you've got Blaze Ball coming in out of McAllister. I know he got a lot of notoriety for his playoff run there. Guys will definitely make an impact. Out the backfield too, as a wide receiver, and then some in the return game. What kind of about Blaze do you like the most?
Well, I think it's a tribute to his name. Like Blaze, he's really fast. He's a really fast kid. Him coming on late in the year was huge, and that's really what showed what he was about and what he could do. I think his speed is a game changer. He's not a small guy by any means. He's still a good sized kid. He can make guys miss. He'll run between the tackles. But his ability to hit a home run is big, and that's what I think, early on, especially, that's going to be really, really good for him to bring to the table. And so, with all these backs, we kind of got a little bit of everything, right? We've got the home run hitters, we've got the downhill physical runners, and we got guys with juice who can make guys miss and make that extra yardage. So, really good blend with these guys, obviously. So, with him having the speed factor and those other guys, we're really excited about this group.
And then finally here, you mentioned earlier that you, you that you're wanting to build with that unit. How kind of do you go about doing that heading into spring and then through the off season and in the fall camp?
And did you say culture? It kind of cut out for me.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. No, and that was big when I first got in. Learned a lot from my last time as a position coach, and culture is the biggest thing. When it gets guys to buy in, understand what we're trying to accomplish. That was big, and so, a few things I told them. I said, and I've said this with every position group I've been a part of, is just, be who you say you are. You're in the recruiting process. You don't come in saying you're gonna say miss workouts, take reps off, things like that. You don't come in saying that. You come in saying you're a hardworking kid. I bring this skill to the table. I'm going to be the hardest worker. I'm going to be the best leader, so on and so forth. Be that guy then. Be who you say you are. I think it's really easy for them to understand, really easy for them to live out. And so, that's some, we're going to really take on in our running back room. And another thing we talk about is, if it matters to you, it's going to show up on film. And so, I try to attribute that to really pass protection a lot, pass protection, ball security. If you care about your teammates, you care about the success of the team, and you care about blocking and pass pro, and you care about ball security, it's going to show up. If you don't care about it, it's going to show up on film that you're fumbling the ball and missing blitz pickups and things like that. And so that's something we really hammer home. I've hammered home with them already. And so that's something we're gonna really show what matters to us on the field. And then the next thing is we can't take anything for granted. Coach Doral said last year, you only have so many Saturdays to play. Your window of opportunity as a player is not massive. It's not open forever. That could be taken away from you on an injury. It could be taken away from you on, say, you don't make the playoffs and you're done. Things like that. And so we just can't take any of that stuff for granted. We really got to appreciate the opportunity at hand and really take advantage of it. And biggest thing is care about our teammates, because they're in it too. And so, those are the things I really hammer home with guys. We're going to lead the country in Division II and attitude and effort. Attitude and effort is going to help us win a lot of games. I've seen effort overcome a lot of limitations for guys and put them in really good positions to win games and to win reps, just because they really cared and they were high effort guys. And so that's what I've really instilled in them, and I think they've done a good job of taking that on.
Well, before we get you out of here, we do this with all the new guests, kind of some more get to know you type questions. So your favorite hobby outside of football?
Favorite hobby? I'm a big golf guy, and I'm really a very avid college basketball guy. Anytime we can go to some games at Oklahoma State, OU, we try to. Obviously, watching the UCO teams, the men's team's doing really good right now, playing in the conference championship right now, I believe, if it's not over. So, really big basketball guy. Like to play golf. Big car guy as well. I've got a couple collectors' cars that I kind of mess with here and there, and those are the things when I'm not on the field. That's kind of my getaway and kind of disconnect from football is doing that kind of stuff.
Now, what is your dream car?
Dream car. I'm a Ford guy, some people think I'm crazy, but just some of the performance stuff they have. My dream car would have to be either a Ford GT, the supercar that they've got, or the Shelby GT 500 Mustang. Those two, that's where it's at for me. But I'm a new horsepower, big numbers guy. So those cars, that's kind of my go-to in terms of dream car.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Do you game at all?
Oh yeah. No, I was a big obviously college football. That was a big deal for me. I still play it as much as I can today. Madden has gotten really bad, honestly. The last few years, I've been very disappointed in that game. So other than that, I play a lot of Call of Duty Warzone. I've been trying to get on with Coach Donald, Coach Curley, Coach Sanders, and all them. They typically play a good amount when we can. So I've made the switch. I was a PlayStation guy growing up. Got a chance to get one of the newer Xboxes a couple years ago, so I made the switch to Xbox and hated it. So now I'm back to PlayStation. I'm loving life again, and so I'm waiting to get my account set up so I can play Warzone again online.
Well, okay, now what? Wait, no, what was it? What was it about Xbox that was so bad that you had to switch back to PlayStation?
Man, the controller's different. Like just the layout of the controller, it's a lot lighter, I feel like, and the joysticks are in weird areas. The platform itself, how the software is, I think it's a little it's overcomplicated for what it is a little bit, and just I don't know. I'm a diehard PlayStation guy, man. I love what they were doing. It stayed pretty similar the whole way through. I feel like the movement games, especially like Madden 2K, way better movements on PlayStation than it is Xbox. Like when I first played Madden on Xbox, it made me want to throw my controller through the screen because the movement, I felt like I didn't have as much control of guys. So that's what did it for me, and I'll never go back.
Oh, I do have to agree on that because I was an Xbox guy. Well, I was PS2, and then I got the 360, and so I remember when I finally got a PS3 like NCAA team with my friends, I noticed how like more freedom of movement it felt. It took me a while because it felt like it was faster on the PlayStation than it was on the 360. Yeah. And so then when my PS3 finally gave out and I went back to the 360, I could really tell a difference. Like, okay, there is like a slow pace than the PlayStation. Okay, yeah, I agree with that.
Absolutely. No, and I'll never go back.
Now, when you play NCAA now, because talking to some of the guys on the team that play, there's a lot of read option abuse, a lot of four verticals abuse. A lot of them will wait until later on in the season on Dynasty and try to go for those low lock cheeses. Now, I have to ask because you're an actual coach who have integrity. I'm hoping when it comes to the virtual world as well. Do we play style, or are you also using the four verts and the read options? Like what is your play style like?
So I'm a big dynasty guy, and so I'll kind of go through cycles where I get a quarterback that is a little slower, and then I get the need to want to run a guy, and so I'll go back and do some read option. But any verticals, I'm a big fan of across the board. Four verts, I'll get behind that regardless who I have a quarterback. But on the game, I really go to the air raid stuff, being a quarterback guy, and I was always around spread stuff. I love the air raid, system. And so I'll do a lot of mesh, I'll do a lot of white cross, stuff like that. But man, it's hard to get away from four verts. And if you've got a guy that can run on there, I love some read option. I'll even change the offense up a little bit, try to get some triple going here and there. I think that's kind of cool, speed option. So I was a big Texas football fan growing up. So I just remember like Vince Young and Colt McCoy doing a bunch of speed option. And so in the NCAA games, I try to implement that some sort of way.
I feel like the speed option is risky because I feel like pitch man will take weird angles at times, so you think you have the pitch man, and then you pitch it, and he just picks it off and runs it back.
Yeah,
I get really scared whenever I run that.
Yeah, it's different, man. It's definitely a science. Believe me, I've thrown a couple back the other way, but I've also strung some big plays. So it keeps me coming back. It's just like the casino; they'll give you just enough to make you want to go back, and then they'll take it. So.
Yeah, this is good. Yeah, no, because I actually prior to this, I was just setting my music. I have 4 Oklahoma team builders that I snagged prior to the servers crashing, and so basically what I did is I created 4 coaches essentially. I moved them all to being a independent, forced to winless season. All those 4 teams with walk-ons, and I put them all in the same conference. So I'm kind of curious to see how this is going to turn out. But I'm thinking, yeah, it could be some good recruiting battles. It's all a level playing field, all 1-star, all 20 something overall. I was frustrated that how that goes. Okay, good. I'm glad there's NCAA lovers on the team. I was scared at first because everybody's like, "Oh no, Madden, I play Madden. Madden's better." Okay, this is good.
Yeah, I'm not in that realm. I'm not a fan of Madden. I still have it and I try to play it, but it just, I don't know. It's been redundant so long, and they've just not made very good changes. So supposedly next year is supposed to be a big overhaul. So I'm holding out, and I guess we got to wait another year for the college football game. They're pushing that to like 24 or something. So we'll just keep on waiting.
Yeah. NCAA 14. It's gotten me through up until now.
No doubt.
It'll keep me going until
no doubt, man.
Until then. Let's see. Okay, your favorite TV show.
Favorite TV show. It's not current. I kind of have to watch it on HBO. I'm a big Entourage fan. I started watching that later on in high school and college, and I've had to rewatch it ever since. I would say Entourage and The Office. I'm a big Michael Scott fan. I'm a big Ari Gold fan. So those 2 for sure.
Okay. See, your favorite musical artist.
See, I'm kind of all over the place with that. If you look at my playlist or my music library, it goes anywhere from Lil Wayne to Morgan Wallen to Blink-182 to some older stuff. Like I've got so much stuff on my playlist that I kind of jump around. You know, there's a kid. I grew up in a tiny town, Southwest Kansas. There's a kid who, I say he's older than me. He makes a lot of music and puts it out, so I listen to his stuff a lot. But it kind of depends, man. What Morgan Wallen put out this weekend, it was fire. So I've been listening to that a little bit lately.
Okay. Now I know Peyton Scott's a very big music guy. I remember talking to him how he has a very diverse playlist too. Now, you did mention Lil Wayne. Now your running back Jace has caught some flack, okay? Because when he came on here, little than old Lil Wayne. Now I've asked everybody since that time. They have all said old Lil Wayne is better. So I'm going to ask you the same question: old Lil Wayne or new Lil Wayne?
No, I'm gonna have to stay with old Lil Wayne. The Carter albums, that's where it's at for me. But his new stuff isn't bad by any means. It's just it's hard to beat that stuff that he did early on. It was a lot of good things. You know, I listened to it a lot growing up, you know, before games and whatnot. So that kind of sticks with me a little more. But no, I'm gonna have to jump on the old Lil Wayne train.
And now I also talked to guys about who was the best and the worst on the court. Now it was brought to my attention that, again, unfortunately for Jace, I love the guy. Apparently was one of the first on the aux court as well. So I just don't know about that. I don't know if you want to talk to him about this,
I know.
because it was brought to my attention that he played an R&B Drake song during the whole vibe. So I don't know.
He's been kicked off the aux a few times that I've seen. Another one that got kicked off recently was Andrew Carney. He played some type of, it was either old country or old, like an old sad song or something, and he had the whole team room revolting for a second, but he kind of rebounded and put some good stuff on later. But it can get brutal, man. That the people will let you know what they want and what they don't want. That's for sure. So it's you got to be bold to go take a hold of the aux cord around our guys.
Oh, that's great. Let's see. Okay, your favorite food.
I'm a big seafood guy. I love shrimp, crab legs. I was actually talking to a recruit the other day about how, like, sad I am that I've always lived in the middle of the country, because I've never been able to get, like, fresh seafood very very often. So I'm definitely a shrimp and crab legs guy. That's got to be the best out there for me.
And do you have any pregame routines that you normally do?
Uh like, as a coach or as a player?
Uh, both.
As a player, I always like to go out and walk the field before, kind of just get a feel, try to envision success, and just try to get used to where the clocks were and everything. That was a big deal for me as a player, and then just we had music playing in the locker room and just kind of getting the flow, and do that whole deal. But as a coach, I like to be a little relaxed before a game. I don't like to get um, too high, so I just I'll watch, if it's an evening game. I'll try to catch a little bit of the early college football games that are on. I'll go up to the press box and hang out. Most of the time in my career, I've been a box coach. I like the box better. So I go up there and just kind of get a feel, kind of make sure I'm prepared and what I'm bringing up there. And I always have some type of energy drink before, whether it be a Red Bull, a C4, a Bang, a Monster. I always have an energy drink right before the game, just so I can lock in and focus. But yeah, that's pretty much it. When I was a field coach, it was kind of different. I kind of didn't know what to do because I'm used to going up to the box and hanging out for a little bit and then going back down and getting ready. But I still tried to find my way up to the box one way or another, even when I was on the field. So that's my thing, I guess.
Yeah. I guess my final question for you would be, what can UCO fans expect to see out of your running back unit this?
No, I think you're going to see a really, you're going to see the energy of the unit. That's the biggest thing. I feel like for running backs, you got to be able to run angry. You got to be able to play with an edge, and be an energizer for the team. And so I'm pushing that to the guys. You're going to see guys who are playing with a lot of passion, a lot of effort, a lot of energy. They're going to care about their teammates. They're going to be doing a really good job, and anything we ask them to do, whether it's in the run game, and pass pro, whatever, we're really going to take pride in what we do, and just play like we got something to prove. Like I said, I feel like at this point, I've always had the underdog mentality. I've always had to prove myself, and so I'm putting that on them. Like, we've got to prove ourselves as a unit. We've got to go out there and prove a point. We got to play that way, and so I feel like that'll help our success a lot. And I think there'll be a lot of exciting plays made by this group with a lot of different faces and a lot of different skill sets. So just exciting football, a lot of passion, a lot of energy, and really good product on the field across the board.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time this afternoon to come on and talk to me. I'm really looking forward to seeing what your unit does. There's a great turn of players. You added a lot of talent to that room. So I'm just really excited to see the continued growth of that unit, and I'm wishing you the best moving into spring, into the offseason, and into the season. If you ever want to come back on, you're more than welcome to.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you having me on, man. And hopefully we'll see you around spring ball. You can come by the facility, kind of watch practice, and hopefully you can get a lot of good insight of what we're doing here at UCO. We really appreciate what you're doing for the university and for the program.